It's that time again. Main Man T. Back for the Bro Code Podcast. Produced by Kennedy Lucas.
What's good, y'all? It's your boy, Terry Lester, and you are now officially locked into the Bro Code Podcast, coming at you loud, live, and straight from the culture, Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. You already know the code: respect, loyalty, and keeping it unapologetically real. 100 points. But hold up, this ain't just any episode. Nah, this one right here, this one's special. We got royalty in the studio today. The mogul himself, the media mastermind, and your favorite creative's favorite creative. Our very own executive producer, Kennedy Lucas, is in the building as special co-host.
You know what time it is. It's Cowboy, the swanky one, the humble one, blessed one, Kennedy Lucas, and I'm honored to be riding shotgun with my brother Terry for this fire episode. We're talking real talk, raw truth, and that uncut wisdom only the Bro Code can bring.
That's right. Today we're diving into everything from leveling up as Black creatives to navigating success while staying solid. The pressure, the glow up, the grind, nothing's off limits. And you know we got a few wild stories, hot takes, and maybe a little bro to bro roasting just for the culture.
So whether you're riding in the whip, chilling at work, or trying to dodge responsibilities, no, go ahead and turn us all the way up. We're dropping gems, throwing jokes, and keeping the buck.
This is more than a podcast. It's a movement. So sit back, vibe out, and remember, some codes are meant to be broken. But this one, this is a bro code, and we live by it. Karl Anthony Towns strides up the sideline, heading for the scorer's table. Tip-off is almost here at Madison Square Garden, as his Knicks host the Bucks on this late November night. The lineups have been announced, the anthem has been sung, and the teams have finished huddling. All that is left is for Towns and the other starters to perform their final acts of preparation. At the edge of the table, Towns grabs a shaker bottle with a red label and a perforated lid. He turns it over and sprinkles white rosin powder onto the table surface. He smears his hands in a small pile before clapping them together. Then, the big man hits the court. As Towns jogs off, his teammate Jalen Brunson replaces him at the table. The team captain reaches for a lime green, puck-shaped jar. Pressing a pointer finger into the open jar, Brunson scrapes a dollop of white hand cream and transfers it to his other palm. He repeats this action, rubs his hands together, and joins Towns on the floor. Now in his 10th NBA season, Towns adopted the ritual early in his career, drawing inspiration from the habits of two legends. I saw LeBron doing it. I saw KG doing it. So I wanted my moment to use powder, he tells me. It eventually became an integral part of his routine, evidenced by his reaction ahead of his Knicks preseason debut on October 6, following a blockbuster trade from the Timberwolves. When he couldn't find the red bottle, I actually got mad. Towns admits, I almost damn near flipped the scorer's table. Towns makes trips to the scorer's table for rosin re-ups at the star quarters, at the end of timeouts, after video reviews, and pretty much whenever he is returning to the action. Sometimes, if the supply runs dry, he pauses to pour more powder onto the table. But Towns often just taps his hands into the existing pile while walking past. His teammate, Brunson, isn't shy about heading back for additional dips into his trusty jar before re-entering the action. It's usually the first time I go in a game, then depending on how I feel, I'll add a little, he says. The only thing that has changed since the 7-year pro began consistently putting on the cream as a rookie is the amount he applies. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but it's a must, Brunson says. I always do it. The NBA's most famous player showcases the league's best-known example of sideline skincare before every Lakers game, when LeBron James snatches a shaker bottle and heaves a dusty cloud into the air. But across the league, players are dabbing, smearing, dousing, and lathering their hands at the scorer's table as they head onto the court. The official NBA rulebook forbids the on-court use of any foreign substance designed or intended to provide a competitive advantage. However, according to league memos, explicit exemptions are allowed for 3 categories: rosin powder, chalk or liquid chalk, and hand lotion for hand maintenance. It's tough to know exactly who uses which substances and how often. No stats are recorded for finger dunks per 48 minutes. No metric exists for rub-ins above replacement. However, all 30 NBA teams consistently stock the same two products on the sides of the scorer's table: the red bottle Mueller rosin blend powder and the lime green jars and tubes of O'Keeffe's Working Hands hand cream. Most clubs put out just one form of the latter, a jar or tube, on a game-by-game basis, but at least 8 teams offer both for players to choose between swabbing and squeezing. In addition to James, known hand powder aficionados include the Warriors' Draymond Green, the Spurs' Chris Paul, the Nuggets' Russell Westbrook, the 76ers' Kyle Lowry and Caleb Martin, and the Celtics' Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday. Portions of the black scorers' tables in Cleveland and Brooklyn, among other arenas, resemble smudged classroom chalkboards thanks to the permanent rosin blend stains. Brunson must be wary of Towns' handiwork whenever the guard customarily hops atop the Knicks' end of the table during stoppages to wait for play to resume. "I try not to sit on the powder side, because then you look crazy," Brunson says. Presumably, the table in Toronto has become better moisturized since the Raptors traded for Emmanuel quickly last season, given the guard's tendency to drizzle globs of Working Hands from the tube straight onto the table's surface, like a beachgoer applying sunscreen. He is one of many documented hand cream users, along with the Warriors' Steph Curry, the Cavs' Donovan Mitchell, the Bucks' Damian Lillard, and the Heat's Bam Adebayo. Ditto for the Hawks' Dyson Daniels. Before a mid-February road game in New York, the league steals leader snatched a couple of scoops of cream as he took the court for warm-ups. Meanwhile, at the Timberwolves practice facility, fellow players know instantly when guard Mike Conley hoists a shot. Someone will rebound it and it'll be all lotion wine. They'll be like, "Oh, Mike must have just touched this," Conley says. A few mad scientists, including the Sixers' Kelly Oubre Jr. and the Magic's Kentavious Caldwell Pope, sometimes even mix the powder and the cream. "It's a good combo," Oubre says. Even fewer players swear by a third product, Mission Power Grip, a liquid chalk that comes in gray tubes the size of travel hand sanitizer bottles. "That's always been my thing," the Hawks' Oniko Kongwu says. But most players remain loyal to either Mueller or O'Keeffe's, with rivalries sometimes forming on the same roster. Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels roll with Team Powder in Minnesota, for instance, while Conley and Naz Reid rep Team Cream. And while Hart joins Brunson in scooping from the green jar before every Knicks game, fellow starter Oji Anunoby follows Towns' lead in patting the pile. "I've experimented with Working Hands," Towns says. "It's cool. I like it. I see why people use it. It's hard, though. I built a habit of using scorer's table powder. So that's the way I go. Swipe by swipe, shake by shake. A decades-long tradition of sideline skincare has exploded into a league-wide obsession. One fumbled pass or one errant dribble can cause a team to lose its grasp of a possession, a game, or a series. And yet, in an age when nothing goes in or on their bodies without scrutiny, countless players rely on products commonly found at hardware stores and pharmacies for the last, most important thing they do before returning to the court. It's always been an NBA thing, I guess," Oubre says. "You just see people going to the scorer's table, check into games, doing stuff with their hands." Exactly how the NBA developed its dermatological habit is unclear, as historical evidence is sparse. According to the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, the lone relevant artifact in the museum's collection is a bottle of baby powder from a medical bag once carried by former Celtics trainer Ed Lasert, who was with the team from 1987 to 2017. There is no question that players were coating their hands with foreign substances long before Lasert first worked an NBA sideline. Several peers of three-time league champion Paul Silas recalled a late forward using a stickum-like paste to help snare rebounds in the 60s and 70s. "If he touched you, it would stick to the hair on your arms," says Hall of Fame forward Bobby Jones, who played with Silas on the Nuggets. Per league memos, there are 4 explicitly banned products: Mueller's Stickum, Mueller's Quick Drying Adherent Spray, Kramer's Tough Skin Spray, and Kramer's Firm Grip Powder. But it was around the start of Lasert's tenure that rosin powder first became a fixture of top scorers, tables league-wide. One of the earliest examples available on Getty Images, from 1990, shows Michael Jordan leaping over a white shaker bottle of Kramer's rosin mixture while re-entering play in a Bulls game against the Pistons, having chased a loose ball out of bounds. Founded in 1918 by 2 Kansas-based brothers, Chuck and Frank Kramer, both of whom were later inducted into the National Athletic Trainers Association Hall of Fame. The eponymous sports medicine company spent years as the only player in the NBA powder game. Its bottles even made annual courtside cameos at the All-Star game throughout the late 90s and aughts. The early 2010s saw a challenger emerge in Mission Power Grip, thanks to the fact that NBA All-Star Carmelo Anthony helped develop, test, and talk up the gray tube liquid chalk. Sweaty hands can mean all the difference with a shot, a pass, a block, and, most importantly, your confidence, Anthony said in a news release around Power Grip's 2011 launch. The chalk is messy and is really just for show. A changing of the rosin guard was also underway then, as Kramer, which was acquired by Performance Health in 2013, lost its hold on the NBA market in favor of Mueller's Red Bottles, a family-owned sports medicine company from Wisconsin that has been around since 1959. Mueller also makes a chalk-only athletic powder that has a small amount of traction in the lead today. It was also around this time that the now-on-the-present green jars and tubes first appeared, marking the start of a rise to their contents becoming arguably today's preeminent choice for basketball players seeking mid-game hand maintenance. As the Lakers' Dorian Finney-Smith says, it just seemed like it grew gradually. Now everybody's dipping their fingers in that John. Working Hands Cream was invented in 1990 by Oregon pharmacist Tara O'Keefe, who whipped up a formula in her kitchen to combat the cracked skin that her father endured at his job as a rancher. Now owned by Gorilla Glue, O'Keefe's primarily markets its signature product to farmers, doctors, and others who use their hand for a living. Among them is the brother of the Nets' Cameron Johnson, a neuroscience lab employee whose work involves operating on rats. When his hands get dry, instead of putting on lotion, he uses working hands, so he's not slippery. Johnson says, going on to recount a moment of mutual surprise one day when the brothers each pulled out their own jar. He was like, "Why do you have this?" And I was like, "Why do you have this?" As for how the cream became such an NBA staple, the answer appears to be almost entirely through word of mouth. Finney-Smith learned about it after spying a jar in Seth Curry's gym bag when they played together in Dallas. The Hawks' Clint Capella and the Heat's Kyle Anderson similarly report being introduced to it by former teammates Gerald Green in Phoenix and Boris Diaw in San Antonio, respectively. "My dad played, so he used it," says the Jazz's K.J. Martin, son of former NBA forward Kenyon Martin, whose career ended in 2015. "He always told me, if your S dry, use this." Photo archives point to the Thunder as the likely patient zero among NBA clubs, with green jars popping up on the Oklahoma City side of scorers tables as early as the 2012-13 season. But while further reporting efforts to unscrew the lid on the cream's exact entry point into the league were unsuccessful, its dominance today cannot be denied. Every team uses it. Grizzlies guard Luke Kennard says, "I'd say like half of our team uses it. And the coaches are all over it, too." Isaac Okoro expected to face the usual rookie learning curves when the Cavaliers forward entered the NBA in 2020, such as adapting to the pace of the professional game. But he didn't anticipate struggling to grasp one of the sport's most basic tasks. Time and again, a Cleveland teammate would throw a pass only for it to slip through Okoro's hands. "I really had to adjust to the NBA basketball," he says. "It's a common challenge for incoming hoopers accustomed to synthetically grippier hardware at the NCAA level or overseas, where composite leather balls are the norm. In comparison, the NBA's official all-leather models, sourced from Horween Leather Company and manufactured by Wilson Sporting Goods, can feel downright slick if the player's hands don't have enough moisture to maintain surface tension with the cowhide. A decent sweat can do the trick here, especially with more worn-in basketballs. But often outside help is required. Fortunately for Okoro, a solution was hiding in plain sight atop the Cavaliers' side of the scorer's table. "I used to be like, what is this green thing? Why is everyone putting it on before the game?" Okoro says, "Once I started putting it on, I was handling the ball better, catching the ball better. It doesn't take much cream to make a difference." A little finger swipe, Conley says, "I don't, go in there and dip it out." But the results can be game-changing. Both Conley and the Grizzlies' Kennard testify that they cannot normally palm an NBA ball. without first grabbing a green jar or tube. There's no better ball than a worn-in NBA ball with the working hands. Denver's Christian Braun says, it's optimal. The ball doesn't even feel normal without it. Users say that whereas the glycerin-heavy working hands hydrates dry palms and fingers without leaving behind the greasy feeling of more water-based lotions, Mueller's blend of magnesium carbonate chalk and rock rosin addresses the opposite problem. I think the powder is good because it dries up your hands. The Cavaliers' Tristan Thompson says, the cream? I think it's a little more sticky. I like my S, dry. Catch that ball nice and rough and firm, regardless of what side of the team cream versus team powder rivalry one is on. Both substances serve the same overall purpose, helping players touch up the one part of their body that touches the basketball. Making sure you take care of your hands isn't something people think about too much, says the Magic's Gary Harris, another working hands devotee. But it's definitely an important part because everything we do is with our hands. Certain factors can influence the amount of either cream or powder that a player puts on at any given moment and when. The state of the ball is one. Climate is another. If we're playing somewhere warm and humid like Miami, I use less. Conley says of his cream habits. In Minnesota, Utah, Denver, Toronto, places where it can get dry and cold, you tend to use as much as you can, adds Harris, especially if an arena is too cold. Like all the ones that got the hockey ice, it just helps keep your hands moisturized. Then there's a general wear and tear on a player's skin that builds over a long season. You can see the cracks in them, so I'm probably going to have to do a little tonight. The Pacers, TJ McConnell said before a game late last season, offering his hands to a reporter. Sure enough, during the first dead ball timeout, McConnell visited the table and methodically dipped a finger into a green jar 6 straight times, massaging the cream into his hands in between each dip. One Eastern Conference team trainer estimates that their team's roster burns through 30 combined containers of hand cream and rosin blend in any given year. Fortunately, support staffers get help. In addition to making bulk preseason purchases from sports medicine distributors, the trainer writes in an email, the team also receives a hefty supply of gracious, free product from representatives at O'Keefe's and Mueller. If they're ever missing or not there for use, the player immediately notices, the trainer writes. This being the NBA, such scenarios are rare. If it's not where it's usually at, it's usually there within like one complaint. The Mavericks' Dwight Powell says, the only time that players risk going barehanded is during the off-season, assuming they don't properly plan for the dry months. I usually just steal some from the facility, Brunson says. The star Knicks guard isn't the only player with a private stash. A guy I work with in L.A. a couple of years ago gave some working hands to me, and I carried it around for a while, adds Kennard, referring to his time playing for Clippers. He knew I'd get mad if I didn't have it before a workout. And over the holidays last season, Powell unwrapped a Secret Santa gift from a team staffer to find a fresh green jar. More than missing or empty containers, though, the biggest potential disruption to a player's sideline skincare routine is a common reality. When their number is called, there often isn't enough time for a pit stop en route to court. If I have to get in the game quick, I'll go in, Kennard says. But I'll think about it when I walk past, that's for sure. N.O. one warned Wayne Larrivee about the powder. But the former Bulls play-by-play broadcaster learned quickly before his first game next to color commentator Johnny Kerr in 1991, when he found himself in the line of fire as the team's best player approached the scorer's table. It was the last thing Michael did before he went onto the floor. Larrivee says, he made sure he came over and slapped powder in both of our faces. Generations of NBA stars have since put their riffs on Jordan's powder routine. Kevin Garnett also aimed at press row, albeit with malice. It made me smile to see how pissed the writers got, see them holding their papers up in front of their faces. Garnett wrote in his 2022 memoir, by contrast, a business like Kobe Bryant would extend his palm for Lakers trainer Gary Vitti to grab and rub, like a boxer getting treated between rounds. And James' signature toss has always been a way for the king to reach his subjects, such as with the LeBron 6 chalk version of his Nike shoe that debuted in 2008, and the social media poll that he posted in 2014 asking fans to vote on whether he should bring the signature toss back to Cleveland after shelving it toward the end of his Miami tenure. Yes won with 95%. Of course, the performance element is second order compared to practical reason that players stop by the scorer's table. As James emphasized in a recent episode of the K.L.P Brothers' New Heights podcast, I like the rosin on my hands. It makes my hands stick with the ball. But the product are also playing critical roles in an increasing number of rituals around the league today. Some are serious, as when Tim Hardaway Jr. spells out winning powder before every Pistons game as a reminder of the ultimate goal. And solemn, after Warriors assistant coach Dejan Milojevic died of a heart attack in the middle of last season, guard Brandon Podziemski began drawing a giant heart in rosin blend at the scorer's table and writing Milojevic's initials in the center. The Celtics holiday similarly scrawls a message of such personal importance that he declined to share details through a team spokesperson. Other examples are silly, like the imaginary rock piano that the Warriors' Kevin Looney plays over a rosin pile before tip-off, or the way that the Sixers' Oubre smears a chunk of working hands cream across one palm, sprinkles a dash of powder on top with the other hand, and swirls them together. It's just theatrics for the people sitting behind the table. Oubre says, 1. Game some fans were laughing real hard, like I was making a pizza or something. Then there's a prehistoric method used by the Bucks Brooke Lopez and Bobby Portis, who marked their entrances into the action by sprinkling powder onto a tiny toy dinosaur that sits atop Milwaukee's side of the scorer's table every game, and then rubbing its rosin-dusted back for good luck. Every little advantage helps, Portis says.
All right, Terry. So I caught the Knicks and Pacers games last night. Rivalry is renewed in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks will battle for a trip to the NBA Finals, starting their series with Game 1 Wednesday at Madison Square Garden. Both teams had to defeat tough teams in the second round of the 2025 NBA playoffs to get to the penultimate round of the postseason. Indiana knocked down the top seeded Cleveland Cavaliers in 5 games, and New York denied a repeat bid from the Boston Celtics by taking down the defending champions in 6 games, from Reggie Miller to Spike Lee. This rivalry has brewed plenty of iconic moments in playoff history, and expect there to be more unforgettable memories when the Knicks and Pacers meet in the postseason for the 9th time. The New York Knicks and their most important player are facing foul trouble. Early in the fourth quarter, all-star point guard Jalen Brunson, the NBA's clutch player of the year, picked up his 5th foul when he swiped down a layup attempt from Pacers point guard T.J. McConnell, touching all forearm. Knicks coach Tom Thibodeau pulled Brunson, who leads New York with 31 points, out of the game quickly to preserve him for later in the game. Things are tightening up in the Garden. The Pacers outscored the Knicks by 4 in the third quarter to close their deficit to 3 heading into the fourth quarter of what has been an entertaining back-and-forth affair. The Pacers amped up their defensive physicality and body Knicks point guard Jalen Brunson, often doubling him in the paint once he got past the first defender. And though there were times when Indiana did appear to frustrate Brunson, he nonetheless remained productive and scored 9 points in the quarter to bring his total to a game-high 27. The Pacers opened the quarter on a 10-6 run, and point guard Tyrese Halliburton continued his stretch of aggressive play, seeking his shot. Through 3 quarters, he has 23 points on 9 of 17 shooting. The Pacers also did a better job in the third quarter of cleaning up the glass, collecting several offensive rebounds that led to second chance opportunities. The Indiana Pacers could barely miss in the first quarter. And the second was a different story, at least initially. One frame after they shot 73.7 from the floor, the Pacers cooled down considerably. There were airball threes, smoke layups, and even a wide open dunk attempt by Obi Toppin, a player known to rattle home dunks with power that he flubbed off the back of the rim. Indiana, which started the game making his first 9 shot attempts, followed that up by making just 9 of its following 24. That allowed the Knicks to go on a 13-1 run in the middle of the quarter and build a 7-point lead headed into halftime 69-62. New York has not shied from the quick tempo of the game, something that is more of a Pacers' strength. The Knicks also looked to race out in transition to put up quick shot attempts. Another area where the Knicks are outperforming the Pacers is on the glass, where New York holds a 35-29 advantage. The Pacers were course correct late in the period to stop the bleeding, as all-star point guard Tyrese Halliburton scored the team's final 10 points. Jalen Brunson, 18 points, Karl Anthony Towns, 15 Michael Bridges, 12 laid the way for the Knicks. Ton commentator Kenny Smith offered fans an inside look into how players feel competing in front of a star-studded crowd, especially in New York's Madison Square Garden and Los Angeles Crypto.com arena. The Eastern Conference Finals started with a flurry. The Indiana Pacers and New York Knicks flushed shots at a blistering rate in the first quarter, with both teams combining to go 29 of 42, or 69.0 from the field. But with a 13-5 run to close the quarter, the Knicks are taking a 2-point lead into the second quarter, 36-34. Indiana made each of its first 9 field goal attempts, and by the time it had connected on its first 7, all 5 starters had scored. The Pacers shot a ridiculous 73.7 from the field in the first, with center Miles Turner, who hit all 5 of his attempts, leading the way with 11 points. The Knicks were led by Jalen Brunson, he has 10 points, and Karl Anthony Towns and Michael Bridges, both of whom chipped in 8-8. A quarter century later, it's Knicks versus Pacers for a spot in the NBA Finals once again. The two teams began their best-of-7 series with Game 1 on Wednesday night at Madison Square Garden, and it'll rekindle one of the league's great rivalries of the 1990s that's suddenly been given new life with the rise of the Knicks under Jalen Brunson and the Pacers with Tyrese Halliburton the past 2 seasons. Which mirrors the Knicks miolding, a late lead to a furious Pacers surge, then falling 138-135 in overtime to complete one of the most stunning games of an NBA playoffs that had already set a high mark for drama. New York led by as many as 17 points in the fourth quarter and by 8 with a minute and a half to go. That should have been enough. But Aaron Nesmith kept making 3-pointers, 5 of them in the final 4 minutes of regulation to be exact. The game came down to one final possession for the Pacers, down 2 points with 7.3 seconds left. The ball naturally reached the hands of Tyrese Halliburton, who attempted to continue his run of heartbreakers with a buzzer-beating 3-pointer. For a moment, it looked like the ball had clanged away before falling back in the net. For a moment, the game looked over, and then replay showed Halliburton's foot was on the 3-point line. Overtime. All told, the Pacers scored 23 points in the final 3 minutes and 14 seconds of regulation. The most any team has scored in such a stretch in NBA playoff history, according to Tim Reynolds of the Associated Press. Halliburton had something special prepared for the moment after the shot, pulling out the Reggie Miller choke sign against the Knicks with the Pacers, legend himself calling the game, for TNT calling the game for not realizing his team had 5 more minutes left.
Once the NBA playoff field dwindles to 4, the other 26 teams could be forgiven for moving their attention elsewhere. They can't win the 2024-25 title, after all, and there are so many other events on the league's calendar that warrant attention. The draft, free agency, and management hiring season. But there is still value to be gained from watching the conference finals and learning from the examples set by the Oklahoma City Thunder, Minnesota Timberwolves, New York Knicks, and Indiana Pacers. The NBA is a copycat league, and in terms of both on-court tactics and bigger picture roster building, this quartet offers plenty of stratagems worth copying. Here are 7 reasons the 26 also ran should watch the 4 conference finalists and what they can take away from the experience. Among the top 30 qualified players in assist rate this season, the Thunder's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander boasted the lowest turnover rate. The Pacers' Tyrese Halliburton ranked 2nd, and the Knicks' Jalen Brunson ranked 3rd. It's no coincidence that all 3-point guards led their teams to the conference finals. Low turnover players are often undervalued because it's tricky to notice the turnovers that don't happen but might otherwise occur if a less careful point guard made the decisions. But turnovers are crucial because they're a double whammy of inefficiency. A team that commits a turnover squanders a chance to score and gives its opponent an easier scoring opportunity. According to an analysis of PBP stats data, teams averaged 1.32 points off steals this season versus 1.15 points per possession overall. Consider the Pistons' first-round series against the Knicks. In an impressive showing in his first postseason, All-Star Cade Cunningham averaged 8.7 assists over 6 games versus 8.2 from Brunson. But Cunningham committed twice as many turnovers as Brunson, which equated to 3 or 4 lost points per game for his team. Given that the Knicks' final 3 wins in that series came by 6 total points, the gap in the point guard's ball security arguably made the difference. Cunningham and Hawks' Trae Young, the top 2 players in turnovers per game this season, would benefit from watching Gilgeous-Alexander, Halliburton, and Brunson in the conference finals to see how they probe defenses and make plays while avoiding costly giveaways. That film would also be useful for younger promising point guards like Chicago's Josh Giddey, Portland's Scoot Henderson, and Utah's Isaiah Collier, all of whom posted turnover rates more than twice as high as SGA's this season. Lesson no. 2. The importance of reliable rotational depth. Teams that could benefit: Denver Nuggets, Los Angeles Lakers, Phoenix Suns, Milwaukee Bucks. It's common knowledge that rotations shrink as stars play more in the playoffs. In the regular season, 76ers guard Tyrese Maxey led all players with 37.7 minutes per game, but 20 players are averaging more than that this postseason. One broad lesson of this postseason is the persistent importance of depth, however. The Pacers have regularly played 11 men for double-digit minutes in their playoff games. The Thunder use a consistent 10-man rotation until Game 7 against the Nuggets, when they finally shortened it to 8 players. And while the Timberwolves typically go 8 deep, their 3 regular reserves are all starter-caliber contributors: Naz Reid, Dante DiVincenzo, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Only the Knicks, who play Mitchell Robinson and Miles McBride in addition to their 5 heavy-minute starters, have a shallow rotation among the conference finalists. That contrasts with a host of shallow contenders that have already been eliminated, most recently the Nuggets, whose inferior bench couldn't keep pace with the Thunder's or compensate for injuries to Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. Reigning MVP Nikola Jokic observed this pattern after Denver's Game 7 loss in Oklahoma City. "We definitely need more depth," Jokic said. "It seems like the teams that have longer rotations, a longer bench, are the ones who are winning." Indiana, OKC, Minnesota, in addition to helping in the event of injuries, deep benches offer lineup and schematic flexibility, which is increasingly important in the modern NBA. Oklahoma City can play big, small, or super small, as Coach Mark Daigneault has enough trustworthy players to make all of those combinations work. Minnesota can close games with a steady hand in Mike Conley Jr., or can bench the 37-year-old guard in favor of more quickness on the perimeter. That's not to say stars aren't still the driving force behind these conference finalists. SGA is the likely MVP winner, and Anthony Edwards is averaging 39.9 minutes per game in the playoffs. But options are important, too. A big group of shallow, star-driven teams without enough talent in their supporting cast should take note, then spend their summers trying to improve this weakness. Lesson no. 3. Whether the East is truly up for grabs. Teams that could benefit: Cleveland Cavaliers, Bucks, Pistons, Orlando Magic, Miami Heat, Philadelphia 76ers, Toronto Raptors, Bulls, and basically every other East team with an eye on contending next year. The combination of Jason Tatum's Achilles surgery and the Boston Celtics' coming financial reckoning has altered the Eastern Conference's landscape for this season and next. For the past 4 seasons, Boston has lorded over the conference with last season's title and another finals appearance in 2022. But the East looks wide open next year. The current conference finalists project as the best of the bunch then, too, as the Pacers and Knicks could very well end up in a rematch in 2026. But if other prospective Eastern contenders watch these conference finals and conclude that Indiana and New York are mere paper tigers, then they might be more incentivized to embrace a win-now mindset this offseason while taking advantage of the power vacuum atop the conference. For instance, could the Bucks decide to keep Giannis Antetokounmpo rather than trade him? If the East looks winnable even with Damian Lillard's torn left Achilles, might the Cavaliers decide to run it back rather than make drastic changes to their core after another disappointing postseason? Would the Magic finally decide to push in some chips around Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner? Or would the Pistons try to build off a successful season with a summer splash? Could the 76ers dangle their no? 3 pick for veteran help to rocket right back into the playoff field? How hectic the summer transactions grows could hinge on what rival contenders conclude about Indiana and New York, based on their analysis of this Eastern Conference Finals. Lesson no. 4. How to hide an offensive-minded guard on defense. Teams that could benefit: Cavaliers, Heat, Hawks, Charlotte Hornets, 76ers, Lakers, Memphis Grizzlies. Staying in the East, one commonality between the Pacers and Knicks is both teams having a solid defense despite featuring an undersized point guard who presents a target for opposing offenses. While Halliburton and Brunson are nobody's idea of lockdown defenders, their teams have assembled a trio of wings: Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, and Pascal Siakam for the Pacers, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, and OG and Anunoby for Knicks, who can take all the toughest assignments and rotate in coverage to support the weak links. Mastering this tactic is crucial in the playoffs, which are increasingly about hunting individual matchups over the course of long series. According to Genius IQ tracking, guards have defended screens on 20 plays per 100 possessions in playoffs, up from 15 per 100 in the regular season. That playoff bump is in line with recent seasons. Some guards can't handle that pressure, which hurts their teams no matter how many points they score on the other end. During the Cavaliers' first-round sweep of Miami, Darius Garland said the team's strategy was to pick on Tyler Herro, pick on their weak defenders. Herro fired back. Somebody that doesn't play defense shouldn't be talking, either. It's no wonder then that the Heat had the worst defensive rating of any team in the first round, and the Cavaliers had the worst defensive rating of any team in the second round. Many contending teams are built around dynamic guards like Herro and Garland. Some, like Atlanta, which has collected Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, and Zachary Rizicher in support of Young, are already attempting the Pacers-Knicks model of assembling a two-way force. Others in the same situation should turn to the Eastern Finals to see how the Knicks and Pacers' defenses move on a string behind Brunson and Halliburton. Lesson no. 5. Why it's okay to foul. Teams that could benefit: Nuggets, Dallas Mavericks, Bulls, Bucks, Lakers. Out of 16 playoff teams, the 4 conference finalists rank 11th, 12th, 13th, and 15th in opponent free throw rate in the postseason. The Thunder took exactly as many free throws as their opponents through 2 rounds, and the Timberwolves, Knicks, and Pacers allowed more than they attempted. Despite this deficit, these teams are still winning. One conclusion might be that too many fouls is bad, but not enough fouls is also bad, as it's probably a sign of insufficient aggression, especially in the playoffs, when officials might be more inclined to swallow their whistles and let the players play. See the Thunder's defense against Jokic for a prime example. In other words, some extra fouls might just be the cost of playing strong, physical defense. But that's a worthy trade-off if it produces even more possessions that end with contested shots or steals. This season, the Nuggets, Mavericks, Bulls, Bucks, and Lakers all had average or worse defenses and ranked among the least foul-prone teams in the league. Perhaps they could learn from watching how the conference finalists defend with their bodies and don't relent even after a few whistles go against them. Lesson no. 6. How to stymie the Thunder. Teams that could benefit. Any team that wants to win the West in the next half-decade, it's not going out on a limb to suggest this won't be the last time this Thunder core reaches the conference finals. The Thunder are already the most dominant team in the West, despite the youngest roster in the playoffs, with an average minutes-weighted age of just 24.6 years. Alex Caruso, who turned 31 in February, is the only member of Oklahoma City's playoff rotation older than 26. Factor in the Thunder's present-day talent: massive stash of draft picks and manageable cap sheet, and it's clear that Oklahoma City will be the West team to beat for years to come. So every other conference contender should take notes about what strategies prove to flummox the favorites, even if the Thunder end up advancing. For instance, the Nuggets zone presented plenty of problems for Oklahoma City in the second round, and Minnesota will likely mimic that technique in the conference finals. The Timberwolves played 52 zone possessions against the Thunder in the regular season, albeit with Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle missing those games, 3 times as many as they did against any other opponent. Aight fellas, ladies, and all the real ones rocking with us. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Bro Code Podcast. It's your boy, Terry Lester, signing off, but not before I give a big shout out to my brother in the mic, the legend himself, Kennedy Lucas. Hold it down with me today as our special co-host.
You already know, Terry. This ain't just talk. It's culture. It's truth. It's Bro Code certified. Had a blast chopping it up with you, bro.
Y'all already know we're out here talking real, living loud, and never sugarcoating the message. Whether you're in traffic, on the grind, or lounging with your crew, thank you for riding with us on this May 22nd edition.
Don't forget to follow us on all platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, all that. Tap in with the Bro Code Podcast and join the fam. We got more heat coming, more voices to elevate, and more codes to break down.
Facts. Until next time, keep it solid, keep it real. And remember, Some codes ain't just rules, they're lifestyle.
It's that time again. Main Man T. Back for the Bro Code Podcast. Produced by Kennedy Lucas.